Hello, everyone. Can you get me?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
All right. Happy to see you all around. I can see Comoros, I can see Liberia, I can see South Sudan, I can see our chair around. Eswatini, I can see Nigeria, I can see Sir Madod. Gamizunu, welcome. And there is somebody else that I can recognize. I can also see Omarius. Omari, you welcome. I think this is from, let me check, Uganda, right? And I also see Kenya, and I see Sophia. Sophia, hi there.
Hello there,
So,
thank you.
Yeah, happy to see you around. Okay,
Thank you very
good.
much.
I think you got the agenda. And if this is the case, could you just confirm everybody that
Good
you
afternoon.
got it, please? Yeah, afternoon. Could you confirm that you got it, please? The agenda was sent to everybody. Could you confirm it, please? Repeat here. Mike, John, Michael. Your comments okay now? Can you give me all, please? I think the chair is around. It's Sir Patrick Wanjuki. He's around and he can take the floor and give some information to all of us right now. He's also the chair and the coordinator of this sub-regional network. Please, Sir Patrick Wanjuku, you're around the guest. Wonderful. Liberia, thank you for confirming that you got the agenda. All right. Sir Patrick, Wanjuki, can you unmute your mic and talk? Maybe I need to call him. Just a second. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. You can hear me?
Yes, very well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I can hear you.
You can hear me. Thank you very much. Sorry, that's clear. Thank you very much. Welcome for this meeting. My name is Patrick Wanjuki. I'm the Director General of Public Procurement. Today's agenda, I think it had already been shared with each one of you. From the agenda, we'll be having the opening remarks, and I will ask Mr. Vuzu Mutela, that is, Matsubebula, to open this for the opening remarks before I ask Mr. Toll to take us through a little bit, then I'll take up as the chair of the session. I wish to welcome all of you at this point, and you're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. I trust I'm audible enough. And thank you for the introduction. Good day, ladies. Am I audible enough?
We are losing you along the way.
Is it?
Yes.
I hope. Okay. I'm Vusumutwen Vatamatabula, the Chief Executive Officer at the Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency, meaning chairperson of the network. It is a great pleasure that I get the opportunity to be with you today. I'd love to welcome the network members from the East Africa region present today, as well as members of the other regions that have taken their time to participate. I'd also love to welcome the presenters who will be sharing their experiences with us from Kenya, Uganda, and the representatives of the World Bank, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, and all other partners present today. As we continue to perform our reforms on the public procurement systems, it has become evident that the goal of public procurement by procuring entities has broadened from just being tactical and administrative, but it is now aligned with supporting socio-economic outcomes, such as the social inclusion, economic development, and others. Public procurement is therefore one of the tools that you can use to advance these goals to achieve socially inclusive public procurement outcomes. This, however, require that we boost our interventions for increasing gender diversity in public procurement and make public sector procurement more inclusive of women-owned businesses. And you will recall that the SDGs also, if I'm not mistaken, SDG number 5 speaks to women inclusion. It is through the exchange of information, experiences, and best practices that you can be able to shape our policies to make public procurement more gender responsive, because gender equality has a positive impact on competitiveness. And this is critical for a fair and sustainable procurement system. With our key focus today being on women-led businesses, empowering women to fully have access to government contracts will bring about benefits such as job creation and other societal benefits. In other conversations, we hear them saying that if we empower the women, we make it possible for them to concentrate on developing the household, developing the family, developing the community by default, since they will be concentrating on these initiatives than spending more time on other activities. This basically requires that governments come together to look at strategies for improving women-led businesses, access to government procurement, which is a very critical aspect if we are to succeed in using public procurement to build a more inclusive economy, ensure equitable socio-economic recovery, and promote gender equality. For the session taking place today, I would like to urge each and every one of us to learn from what our counterparts are going to share, learn from one another so that we are better equipped to go back and assess our own procurement system to determine to what extent women are included or excluded from government procurement operations. Countries are already ahead with this initiative, while some are still at the teething stage and may be lacking the data to come up with a clear analysis. However, this opportunity will bring with it direction on where to start and also present a room for improvement for those countries that has already started with implementation. With these few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, fellow members, I wish you a successful constructive session today. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. No doubt it gives us a very clear understanding of today's session in light to the fact that we need to bring social inclusion in public procurement as relates to women in business. I will move now to request the Secretary General, Mr. Tole, to give us his remarks before I move forward with the various keynote speech coming also from Edwin. The floor is yours, Mr. Tole. In case you don't understand English, I would do request anyone who is French speaking and would understand English would pass the message to Mr. Tole.
Oh,
thank you.
Okay. Yes, I'm around to back it up, and currently he is not around, but he took me just to be in for a while for him. So yes, his speech is as follows. Dear Chair of the APPN, Mr. Musumu sorry, Matsibula, dear Managing Director of the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority of Kenya, Coordinator of the East Africa Sub-Regional Network Public Procurement Network, and Chair of the section, Mr. Patrick Wanjuki, dear Directors of various R&D and delegates of East Africa, dear technical and financial partners, namely the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and the Islamic Development Bank. Dear guests, welcome to this first section of the fifth series of sections whose theme is boosting women-led enterprises through public procurement. Since September 22nd, 2021, we have covered important themes as follows: public procurement in emergency COVID-19, AGP current status, opportunities and challenges, professionalization of public procurement and capacity building to end up recently with collection and use of public procurement data, including open contracting data standard before this one that is the current one we're talking about. Women in Africa are more likely than men to be entrepreneurs. Women make up 58% the continent's self-employed population. However, a recent World Bank report profiting from parity shows that women entrepreneurs across sub-Saharan Africa continue to earn lower profits than men. That is 34% less on average. As you can see, this is a serious fact that deserves serious attention, not just for the sake of talking about it, but for finding out solutions to it. We should not just talk about it as man-led entrepreneurs or enterprises coming just to rescue women, weak women trying to enterprise. We should rather invite them to the table and see the benefit we all get working together, especially through public procurement, by making sure that existing mechanisms work properly in a win-win approach. We have invited a keynote speaker who is with us for some time now from Open Contracting Partnership, OCP, Mr. Edwin Muhuza. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Head of Africa at Open Contracting Partnership to tell us more on this theme of great importance. Some member countries are around to share experiences, thoughts on the subjects, namely Uganda with Mrs. Sophia Masikazi, Manager Legal Affairs, the Chair of the Gender Equity and Social Inclusion Committee, the representative of Mr. Benson Ramier, Executive Director of Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority, Rwanda with Mr. C. Bowmanat Celestin, Acting Division Manager for Research, Capacity Development, and Monitoring, representing Mrs. Joyeuse Uwigene, Director General of Rwanda Public Procurement Authority, and Kenya with the representative of Mr. Patrick Wamiki, the CEO of he is around himself, the CEO of Kenya Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. Dear officials of the public procurement, dear member countries and technical and financial partners, let's all pay thorough attention to the presentations in order to come up with solutions to at least improve women-led enterprises through public procurement. It's such an honor to have you as we gather to think and make our network grow through sessions and webinars. As you already know, the Technical Secretary is launching another program called the EGP Focus Group, which is basically to share knowledge on the introduction and use of EGP options, leveraging technologies and innovations, discuss the challenges being faced by the other countries, and to deliberate upon possible actions to face these challenges. This program is of paramount importance for as it shall have time allotted to it during the Second General Assembly of the 15th from November 14 to 17, 2022. So far, we have mobilized 41 member countries out of 53. We would like to encourage the remaining 12 countries to help us reach the target by the end of this month. To finish up, please help me thank the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and the Islamic Development Bank for their constant support. Let's get started now. Not live to the end. Thank you. Dear coordinator, over to you.
Okay. Over to me that maybe I'm required to be making a presentation on the Kenya Public Procurement Regulatory Authority in terms of how we have advanced the case for women enterprises. But my request, I will be making the presentation as the last presenter. Therefore, I do wish to request Ms. Wengens, the Director General of Public Procurement Authority of Rwanda, to make her presentation.
Sir, I beg your pardon. I think the first presentation is the keynote speech for Mr. APPN.
Yes.
Okay, then I'm going to share his presentation.
Okay, you can share.
Did you see the screen, please? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. But this is just a PDF presentation. So I just proceed at the same time that he is moving on. Thank you. So dear APPN, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes,
We
I
can
can
hear
hear you.
All right, thank you very much. And so I want to thank Patrick and the organizers of the webinar, the meeting, that brings us to discuss this very important and topical issue related to boosting women-led enterprises through public procurement. As we all know, public procurement is a big market. It accounts for nearly 1/5 of the global GDP, but only about 5% to 20% of that goes to women, again, depending on the region in which you are. Kindly go ahead with the slides. And as a result, it means that a significant proportion of the population of the world is definitely left behind in this big market. Open contracting, go ahead, just full. Open contracting is helps in this matter because, as we shall later see, it enables the publishing and using of accessible data, as well as timely information that, as we shall later see, is sometimes a constraint to enabling women-owned businesses participating or being successful in public procurement. The next slide shows just how we support the adoption of open contracting in different countries, which one is the stage related to publishing and improving open contracting data, stakeholder engagement, measuring, adapting, and institutionalizing the reforms, as well as setting goals for secure buy-in to anchor these reforms. So open data, open government is very important and sustainable to encourage women in women-led businesses getting public contracts. The next slide just shows again how we work with government, business, and civil society to bring that cycle together to improve fairness, internal efficiencies, and better value for money, again, which are ingredients for enabling women-owned businesses participate effectively in public procurement. So we recognize that having a gender-inclusive open contracting approach through the different stages of public procurement can enable a country or an organization shift the different dynamics, especially related to power, that tend to restrict and affect women having that element of not just equality, but also equity in this market that can lead to inclusive growth. May I go to the next slide? We look at the challenge that a challenge that we have identified in the different work we've been doing with women-led businesses with our partners, and how the open contracting can help. Now, one of the first problems that we've been noticing is that most designations, even countries, do not have a clear criteria on how to identify what women-led businesses are. And there's no, therefore, aggregated data, or rather disaggregated data, that can point to whether this is a big problem, where the problem is, and therefore, of course, informing on the possible resolution. So open contracting helps in providing gender disaggregated data, because you could have identifiers that will now prescribe what of the businesses that have been gotten, which ones are women-led. This also provides a clear definition of what a women-led business means in each country's context. Next slide. We have an example where this has worked, and we've been very closely working. Colombia. So Colombia is able to disaggregate data and accurately show how many contracts have been awarded to women-owned businesses. We supported them in the work they did developing a new regulation for what they call an entrepreneurship law. It defined clearly what a women-owned and women-run business was within SMEs, but also the big firms. It created a differential criteria that assign points to promote the participation of women in procurement. This is some form of affirmative action or preferential treatment, which many countries have adopted for example, local content. But in Colombia, they have also gone a step further to also support women. I think Kenya has also something to that extent we shall hear later. Then there's a designated gender balance guide that was designed to guide entities and guide even the women-owned businesses on how they can benefit from this. Next slide, we go to another challenge, which is that has come up from the work we've been doing, that the public procurement is complex with so many onerous procedures. There's lack of knowledge of tender opportunities by women and women-owned businesses. And then there's also a general perception of corruption or a sense of biased treatment when women participate in procurement. And that has stayed many of them from participating in public procurement. So open contracting helps in these particular challenges by, if you make contracts open by design, publish information about the planning, tender, award, and the whole layout of public procurement, then the information is available, and so that stops becoming a problem. If you simplify the contracting process by having procedures that are clearly spelled out, not savvy jargon, this helps women-owned businesses, because as we know, in most of these places, they tend to be, unfortunately, still the small and medium enterprises, not even the big ones, that tend to be affected by such complexities. So open contracting helps in having this information published and made available. In Ekiti State, for example, we are helping to share the procurement plans with women-owned businesses, and therefore that makes them prepare early on what is required. So countries that publish their procurement plans and tender notices in very accessible places will tend to ease this burden of lack of knowledge rather. Next slide, please. So this is just an outlay of the open contracting process. I think we've talked about this before, so I'll not spend so much time, but it's about 4 major stages. The user needs, you have planning, where the user needs are definitely spelled out, and therefore women can prepare. They have the tender process stage, rather, where you have information that made available. You have award stages or evaluation, where in some jurisdictions there's some form of affirmative action or preferential mark that is given to women-owned businesses. Then you have contracting, which does not necessarily put complex requirements that fail women from delivering. Then implementation is important because later it involves M&E and also collecting data that I said helps in policy reviews and outcomes, and also proper prescriptions on what needs to be done when supporting women-owned businesses. With the next slide, we go to another. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Another challenge, which is negative perceptions, gender biases and norms, and these are normally sociological issues where you find certain societies still underrate. It can be on the side of the government, but it also be a constraint on the women's psyche themselves. They just feel they're not maybe good enough, or they feel they will not get justice if they apply for these public procurement contracts. Then, of course, very weak feedback loops, where if, for example, people participate in public procurement processes and they fail, in some places it's not where they don't get proper information on why they failed and what they need to improve on. So again, here, open contracting helps in helping the country or an organization understand the gender gaps and challenges. And this is really information collection through engagements like these, research, data analysis, basically keeping the communications channels open. You need to have to understand what women-owned businesses are suffering from, what are their challenges, because then you'll be able to put the correct interventions. A feedback mechanism, yes, we've talked about that, and then also the information flow. Have you frozen?
Sorry, I lost the connection a while. Yeah, I'm back now, sorry.
All right. So there must also be, of course, a gender responsive procurement strategy that helps in defining what needs to be done, when, by who, and what resources need to be deployed. Another place we're working in is in Ekiti. Ekiti is a state in Nigeria. As many of you will know, Nigeria is, of course, a federal government, so the states are more or less semi, if not largely, autonomous. So the key actions we've done so far to just illustrate this challenge I was talking about, we've had several engagements with key stakeholders, and these include the political leadership, the women-owned businesses, the associations that are women-led, civil society, basically the broad range of what you'd expect to be stakeholders in an area. And we've done some surveys and we've done some capacity building with these different players. We've supported the state develop policy guidelines and the manual for gender responsive procurement, which is now just about to be to come in force. Maybe to even speak about that, the state is considering even upgrading these to regulations within their procurement act to mainstream these. Building the capacity of procurement officers is very important, because then they are the ones who tend to lead in the procurement function. Now, the other challenge that is, again, we keep finding from the interventions we have is lack of access to finance. And here, the open contracting can help in developing prompt payment guidelines and regulations to also provide business support services where women can be supported in or identifying where maybe they can access money, what options like the procurement cadre have when they are requiring, for example, bid securities. Could bid security declaration sometimes be used for some of these tenders that usually women-owned businesses participate in? But also as a state, they need to be, there's need for information, and that goes back to the feedback loop. If these businesses provide services to the government and delays in paying them, or sometimes not even get paid at all in some unfortunate circumstances, that of course hits these businesses more. The next slide, we now look at a study that we've been doing in the East African region on gender responsive procurement. It's a project that we've done with Africa and the Institute for Social Accountability in the region. And it is to help fill the gap of evidence-based reforms in this area in the region. And the study was done in Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda to measure the extent to which and even the quality of women's participation in public procurement, the barriers that they are in, the effectiveness of the emerging policies. Most of these countries have some form of women reform intervention to support women business, but we wanted to check whether they are effective, as well as the possible policy reforms and program design modifications needed if the current situation is to improve. We shall be disseminating this study in a short while, but it is supported by the Growth and Economic Opportunities for Women program initiative, rather, under the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and William and Flora Herriot Foundation and the International Development Research Center. Some of the preliminary findings from the study show what we have already talked about. Is difficulty in identifying what women-led businesses are. So most of these countries don't necessarily have a definition of what a woman-led business is. But this is broader. It's not just from this study. It's like what we've been finding out from different places, as already noted. Of course, there are negative perceptions which impact bids. These negative perceptions arise from sociological barriers, attitudes of people who deal with women, but also sometimes the women themselves, lack of access to finance. And again, public procurement is obviously, it's a reflection of the wider problem like women-owned businesses face, whether they are going to face particular public procurement or not. Then, of course, we note that the tendency to operate on a very small scale sometimes limits their ambitions. So public procurement is, of course, at a higher scale than small businesses, like your typical small kiosks and small run businesses. And that mentality, which we've seen that in Sub-Saharan Africa and East Asia, women lead on average about 23% of small businesses compared to 11%. And it gets even worse in certain particular countries. So if you look at that, that means for large businesses, which usually participate in public procurement, 89% are led by men. And so that's a problem that we need to have an intervention with. Next slide. So the key recommendations as I conclude are that we need to define what a woman-led business is, and our working definition has been anything equal to or above 51% ownership by shares in a business. If it's by women or a woman, then that is a woman-owned business. Anything higher than one, more than one woman as the either CEO or chief operating officer, or in some situations where, of course, you have the sole proprietorship by a woman, then that's our working definition. We also recommend that there's a gender equality commitment, and that can come through a strategy. Like if you have a strategy that defines where you are, where you're going, what you need to do, who needs to do what, that is very helpful, especially if it's evidence-based, and obviously we recommend that it's based. Make public contracts open by design. In other words, there's openness around tendering so that women can know this information, they can get this information very easily and participate. Simplify the application procedures and tender requirements, simplified bidding documents. In some cases, if need be, when you have large contracts, you can think about using lots to allow the women-owned businesses, which, as we have noted, are still largely small, to participate in this area. Next slide. So these speak to our approach when we are working with our partners in helping in this inclusion of women in procurement. We work closely together in of course, determining the project design and implementation, setting objectives to show where we're going, what are the key performance indicators, and how we shall measure success. Like what will success look like? Redesign the existing systems that within, of course, the laws that are existing, but usually there are a few things that can be tweaked by either regulatory bodies or the policy departments that oversee public procurement. The other is this picture I'd already spoken to, but it shows the different players and what they need to be doing at different stages to take us to where we want to go in improving access of women in procurement. So you see, like, what does the government do in laying the groundwork? What does the other what do other agencies do? What do the businesses do when it comes to laying the ground, the culture and the values? Building the system, which means helping to have open data processes, planning to have shared goals and defining success, widening reach in the sense of also using PR, change management, and things like that, and follow through. You need to keep measuring how we are performing. Let's go. Next slide. So here I'm really just sharing the other resources that that exist on gender related procurement. When we share the slides and you click these links, you get more information. Just go to the next slide. Yeah. So we have other things that we're doing on sustainable public procurement, because gender in procurement is really one aspect of the broader sustainable procurement. And we have a toolkit. If you click on that link on our website, it shows you the different things that happen. As you notice, with most public procurement reform, it's very difficult to pick one thing. They are always interlinked. If you don't have openness, it's very difficult for women in procurement. If you're not paying early, you don't have women in procurement. So it's an ecosystem. Last slide, I think. Yeah, so these are just what other reports we have on our website. You can always go there and read them. We have a report on equity and inclusion of women in procurement in South Africa, empowering women as a policy brief, and the procurement path to equity, and equity report showing the state of where we are. Okay. Yes, so these are just resources that you can go on our website and check out. There are blogs, there are reports, and then basically the whole website, which gives in detail what I've talked about. I think I've overshot my time. I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Edwin. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think now I need to move to the next presentation, and I think by now I am okay to make my presentation. Okay, Abdul, could you share my presentation?
I thought yours will be the last. Okay, anyway, let me just check it for you. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you very much. I think I hope it's clear now. This presentation is trying to look at how public procurement can be used as a strategic tool for women's economic empowerment. And in this case, how do we use public procurement to boost women enterprises? I'll also be looking at the policy framework, a brief on what we call preference and reservations to access to government procurement opportunities. We'll be also looking at or rather highlighting on the various enablers that work towards moving public procurement in the enhancement of economic empowerment of women. What are the challenges and indeed the proposed way forward? Okay, next up. The strategic importance of public procurement cannot be understated, taking into account that government is the largest spender of money, public money in procurement of goods, works, and services. As a socio-economic development, generally women are taken to be a disadvantaged group among small and medium enterprises, women, youth, and persons living with disabilities. And therefore, there's need to promote women enterprises. Okay. Next. The legal, or what I would call the institutional framework of public procurement and enhancement of women enterprises that participate in public procurement. The Constitution of Kenya provides under Article 227 on the need to have a system that addresses the different categories in the advancement of persons living with disabilities, women, and youth. Okay, part 12 of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, this is the legal framework that governs public procurement in Kenya, provides, among others, how to give access to business opportunities for various disadvantaged groups, and women are considered to be a disadvantaged group. Next. Under the same legal framework and policy, we have what we call Kenya Vision 2030. Pillar number 5 on social strategy provides how the people of Kenya and various categories should be empowered in the economic development of the country. And in this particular area, the women enterprises play a leading role. Definition of who is a woman. There may be an assumption, and therefore it is very clear that a woman means a person of the female gender who has attained the age of 18 years and includes a company, association, or body of person, corporate or unincorporated, in which at least 70% of the stakeholders, or rather shareholders, members are women, and for that matter, are female. It is important to note in this aspect that it is not just owning the company, the shareholding, but also the women who own these enterprises must be the mandatory signatory to any bank account that is operated either by the woman as a person or operated by a body corporate, be it a company or any other form of business enterprise. Next. What is the purpose of the preference and reservation? First is to promote local, national, and regional industry and support socioeconomic development generally. To protect and ensure advancement of persons, categories of persons, or groups previously disadvantaged by unfair competition. And women have indeed been disadvantaged to a large extent. Then to enhance capacity of locals to participate in government tenders, e.g. facilitating them with credit, bid boards, and other securities. Then setting aside manageable sizes of procurement for SME. In this SMEs, these are small, medium, and enterprises, either owned by youth, women, or persons with disability. And for women, the government provides that for every public entity, it must reserve out of its total budget, 30% of that total budget. Then out of that 30% of the total budget, 40% must go to women, 40% must go to youth, and 20% must go to persons living with disabilities. But for the topic of today, which is in regard to the women must get 40% of the reserved 30% of the national procurement budget. That's it. Types of preference and reservations where women enterprises may fall. They may fall under local preference, national preference, and regional preference. These are the various preferences in regard to how do you allocate business. For local, we operate a county government system, therefore which fall below the national government. They must allocate 30% of their business to women, to these enterprises, of which 40% of the 30 must be to women. Then there are also the national government bodies, be it the national government or the parastatal or body corporates established under the Act. Regional preference, this is preferences which are based on regions which have been set up by the various county governments. Reservations, this is whereby you reserve a specific procurement line items to these groups of youth, women, and persons living with disabilities. There could be also citizen contractors and local contractors. Sid? The legal basis of any reservation and preference in public procurement in Kenya is established under what we call Section 157 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act of 2015, and with the Secretary to register, pre-qualify, and certify persons and various categories of persons, including women. Training them, capacity building on these target groups, and providing technical and advisory assistance to procuring entities in the implementation of the preference and reservation skills. There's also the monitoring and evaluation in terms of how much procurements have been processed to these groups, and women being one of them. Therefore, there's the element of open contracting, because all procurements must be published in the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act portal, which is provided under the PPRA, the body that I am in charge as the DG. There's the aspect of the implementation and ensuring that there is clear adherence and compliance to this legal requirement. This information can be obtained from the website indicated below, and in case you need any further information. Proceed. What are the enablers that are working towards ensuring that we boost women enterprises? One, budget and procurement plans. It is a mandatory requirement that every public procurement public entity must provide at least 30% of its procurement budget to youth, women, and persons with disability. Out of the 30%, that 30%, 40% must be to women. 40% must be to youth, and 20% must be to persons living with disability. The second enabler of how to empower these women in this regard is unbundling of procurements limited to these disadvantaged groups. Unbundling in this regard means ensuring that if it is a construction of a road, you unbundle, there is the construction of the road, there is the drainage system, there is a lighting system, you unbundle so that the various groups can be provided opportunities in that procurement contract. There are also aspects of, there's no requirement for enterprises that are owned by women to provide tender security. They are only required to provide a tender securing declaration that they will ensure that they comply with the public procurement requirements. And therefore, this eliminates the cost that comes with the obtaining tender securities. The second aspect, upon winning a tender, women enterprises are not required to, are only required to provide performance security where necessary, and only to a maximum of 1%. Unlike when it is other enterprises, they are required to pay 10% of the contract sum. An aspect also, which is an enabler in this area, is that in case of complaints, women enterprises are not required to pay for filing fees when they are lodging any complaints to the review board, that is the tribunal that adjudicates matters that relates to disputes in regard to public procurement. And lastly, women enterprises, as a requirement, they must open bank accounts whereby they are mandatory signatories. This ensures that they are protected from what you would call people who, other persons who would misuse that initiative by ensuring either that once they get the money is siphoned from the bank without their knowledge. So they are required to be mandatory signatories to those bank accounts. We move. Abdul, you can move to the next slide. Okay, I will use my from my end. The next aspect is competition limited to target group, and the same requirements must be stated in the invitation notice. This means that even at the point the business opportunities are being issued out, published, they must be provided. They must be provided a notice providing that this is for women, it's for youth or persons living with disability. Facilitation of financing through and authenticating of notification awards. This ensures that women enterprises can obtain financial assistance without having to go to the bank and put any collateral to the bank. And this has been big success in the area of women enterprises, including opening of women enterprises funds which loan or give credit to women enterprises. All money paid out to an enterprise, I think I had already mentioned on this, then payment must be paid within 30 days. Unlike for other enterprises where payment terms are usually provided for within 60 days, for women enterprises and other disadvantaged groups must be paid within 30 days. Okay, the next, on the reflection. What is the nature and types of contracts awarded to women category? Women, they can be awarded all types of contracts, including works, including supply of goods and services. Our procurement entities skewed in identifying the categories of goods, works, and services that they reserve to the women category. I would say, yes, there is a bias in providing only what is believed to be fairly easy, but women can undertake any type of contracts. But this is being addressed from a legal point because it is on the budget and not on the procurement items. Any factors that would disadvantage the women professional owned enterprise? Yes, there are quite a number of areas generally whereby women either are not able to access credit, but this is being dealt with, as I did earlier. How can women benefit? By identifying a relevant category of goods, works, and services, policy advocacy on other areas that can enhance women participation in public procurement. What are the challenges? Yes, definitely there are challenges. Lack of awareness. It's a big population of women may not be aware of these schemes where women can participate, and therefore there is need to undertake a lot of capacity in terms of how public procurement can facilitate women empowerment. Lack of skills, expertise, and experience is a challenge, as generally being a middle-income country, we are moving to an element of whereby skills are not there, but this is an area where public procurement public procurement regulatory authority is working on. Of course, financial challenges, lack of data, which can help women to appreciate what they need to do to undertake, to benefit from the various government initiatives in this area. Lack of access to information, no doubt that is a challenge. Conclusion. There is in place government policy that aims at women and economic empowerment, one of them being the Public Procurement Asset Disposal Act. However, the opportunities are not fully utilized, and there is need for periodic review of existing legislation to determine how adequately the policies meet the intended objectives and in specific empowerment of the women. This calls for a robust partnership among the key players with the PPRA as the regulator. Proposed way forward. This includes, but is not limited to, enhance advocacy with relevant players, institutions such as the policymakers, professional bodies, and financial institutions, to have targeted and continuous training and sensitization of both the procuring entities and prospective bidders and preference and reservation, and in particular for the women. And lastly, exploring partnership with relevant government bodies to enhance information sharing on available opportunities. And this has worked very well after setting up a portal where all persons can access information on available public procurement opportunities. With that, I close my presentation. Unless there's a question, and I believe this will handle it at much later stage. Thank you very much. That is the presentation by Public Procurement Regulatory Authority of Kenya. And I move forward to invite Uganda, Mr. Benson Tulamea, Executive Director of Public Procurement Assets Authority, to make a presentation.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Mr. Wanjuki. I'm not Mr. Benson Turami, clearly, distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon from Kampala, and I'm sure it's like someone said, morning or mid-afternoon elsewhere. In Kampala, it's afternoon, and just to thank you for having given us the opportunity as a PPDA, Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority in Uganda, to participate in this meeting. I bear my executive director's sincere apologies for missing this meeting. He had a prior scheduled engagement, and he asked me to attend on his behalf, and I'll be making the presentation as well on his behalf. I've shared the presentation. I hope it can be displayed. Mr. Wanjuki.
Sophia, I can see Abdul is trying to put the presentation on the screen. Just a few minutes. Yeah, yeah, it's online. His machine is a bit slow, but not yet.
Oh, but it's, I'm sharing it. Okay.
Yeah, you can
I go back.
Yes. Yes, it's there. Now just
Okay.
put it on
good.
full screen. Yeah, yeah.
It's ready.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'd just like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to participate in this very important meeting. My name is, as I said, Sophia Nassali Masagazi, and I work as the Manager Legal Affairs at PPDA Uganda. I also double as the chair of the Gender Equity and Social Inclusion Committee at the authority. So at the authority, we are trying much to emphasize the development of a conducive environment to address the gender disparities in public procurement. And of course, to start with, we have guidance from the Uganda Public Finance Management Act, which requires all ministries, departments, and agencies to have gender and equity considerations included in their budget framework papers and policy statements. So before the approval of all ministries, departments, and agencies' budgets, gender and equity requirements must be fulfilled. So this provides the most immediate rationale for us as the authority to focus on gender and equity in the implementation of our mandate as a regulator of public procurement in Uganda. Increasing women's economic opportunities in Uganda's public procurement system and the region and in the world is grounded on a number of premises, really. Of course, first of all, it is a human right as provided for under the different international instruments. Gender equity and social inclusion mainstreaming is in procurement is has a potential to indeed promote Article 1 of the UN Charter, which provides for encouragement of respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all, without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. So gender equality is a fundamental human right and is essential to achieve full human potential and sustainable development. In addition, the objectives set by the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 5, is gender equality. So aside from that, gender and equity and social inclusion mainstreaming have the potential to bridge the economic gender gap and reduce social exclusion for women, as has been clearly highlighted in the presentations before this. Statistics from our Uganda Bureau of Statistics, UBOS, show that the average and annual income for women in Uganda has consistently been lower than that of men. And so because of this, women are encouraged to participate in different activities that can lead to a raise in their income levels. Women, of course, are mostly represented in unpaid work. And as the authority, these are some of the things that we are looking at to try and improve the performance and the participation of women in public procurement. Of course, procurement of goods, services, and works by government is a key tool that government also uses to advance socioeconomic goals. We've seen references in the Kenyan presentation to affirmative action in terms of reservation schemes. We have the same provisions provided for in our public procurement law in Uganda. And indeed, our procurement policy also focuses on using procurement as a tool for socioeconomic growth within the country. Women and girls, of course, represent half of the population and therefore also half of the potential. And so we see that in trying to empower them, this will be able to lead to spurring of productivity and, of course, further economic growth within the economy. But there are constraints, as have been raised even with the previous presentations, as Edwin ably highlighted. There are so many constraints to the participation of women in public procurement. We, as the authority in PPDA, have undertaken a study in collaboration with the UN Women. And we have in that study looked at the barriers and opportunities to women participation in public procurement. With the support of the UN Women Office, this study highlighted the different barriers that women in Uganda are facing in participating in public procurement. The lack of knowledge on the public procurement systems, the limited exposure as a result of low literacy levels amongst ladies. According to UNESCO, Uganda has an adult literacy rate of 76%. But of this, the male literacy is 82 and the female literacy rate is 70. So of course, there's a gap in the literacy levels, which has proved to be part of the challenges that women are facing in participating in public procurement, because as you might be very knowledgeable about, public procurement entails quite an amount of documentation that is required to be prepared in terms of bidding documents and other documents that need to be submitted in the public procurement process. Evidence from data gathered also from Oxfam in districts in northern, southern, and central Uganda reveal that Uganda has a low income earning. Maybe you've moved the slides too quick. Unpaid, because of the unpaid care work is primarily being carried out by women and girls, partly due to the cultural norms. Women income earning is still low, and this still affects their ability to participate in public procurement. As you are aware, there are requirements in public procurement that are financially attached and require, for example, securities that have to be secured, securities not just for the bidding process, but also performance securities and advance payment securities, all sorts of securities that would require financial muscle to be able to participate ably in the public procurement process. Also, other barriers include women being faced with challenges in borrowing, lack of collateral, high technical nature of the tenders also acts as a hindrance. All this was identified in this study that was undertaken in collaboration with the UN Women Office in Uganda. And the findings of the study also revealed that no single strategy can be used to address the problems or the barriers to women participation in public procurement. It was found, or the recommendations made were to the effect that a collection of initiatives involving collaborative approaches need to be undertaken that would require different stakeholders to participate to be able to remove or to improve these barriers that women face in public procurement. So what we as Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority in Uganda have done is to begin with, if you can now move on to the next slide, please. So what we have done is to set up a Gender Equity and Social Inclusion Committee. And this committee really looks at analyzing and identifying the documentation that needs and documenting what initiatives need to be put in place to achieve gender equity and social inclusion in the delivery of the authority's mandate. With the support of UN Women, please go ahead. With the support of UN Women, PPDA has also embarked on a collaboration with the Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Association in a drive to build capacity for women and to try and encourage their participation in public procurement. Please move on with the slides. In this project, the authority is looking to enhance women participation in public procurement. We started this drive in 2018, and we have had a number of trainings to help women businesses in preparation of bidding documents, in registration of their businesses with the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. In these trainings, we look at the advantages and disadvantages of the different types of companies that the women can register, and different taxation matters. What are the fees payable? What is it required to get a tax clearance certificate? What does it take to register on the Register of Providers? The National Register of Providers, of course, can be accessed by all procuring and disposing entities in Uganda. And these trainings have been in a bid to try and get women-owned businesses to get themselves registered on this Register of Providers, and to also formalize their businesses by registering companies that can then participate in public procurement. The drive has seen an increased number of women-owned businesses registering on not only the PPDA Register of Providers, that is now housed on the electronic government procurement system, but there's also currently over 1,260 women-led businesses that have registered for provision of services, works, and supplies on the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. The authority found that amongst the women who we have trained over this project's lifetime, we've trained over 1,200 women in different districts within the country, in Kampala, in Mukono, in Bale, that is in the east, in Gulu, that is in the north of the country, in Fort Portal, in Kitgum, in Masaka, in Hoima, that is in the west of the country. All these places we have organized these trainings for these women-led businesses, and this has increased their knowledge on public procurement. 42% of the participants in these trainings have agreed that the trainings enabled them to register and formalize their businesses through registrations with the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. And in addition, the capacity building workshops offered the women entrepreneurs opportunities to interact with tax compliance officers on their different taxation requirements, and also to find out the different requirements for participation on the electronic government procurement system. The electronic government procurement system, of course, also offers further accessibility to the women businesses in terms of identifying the different businesses that different government procuring and disposing entities have throughout the year, because the different procuring and disposing entities advertise their procurement plans on the electronic government procurement system. And so all the business that is available to the women entrepreneurs is to their access if they are able to register on the electronic government procurement system. 39% of the respondents in the study that was undertaken, in the trainings that have been, undertaken, have agreed that the trainings have enabled them to participate in public procurement. Women entrepreneurs have successfully participated in tenders with local governments. During the trainings, we undertake also media engagements, and different radio stations in those different regions in the countries have hosted members or facilitators of these trainings on the radio stations, together with practicing procurement district official, procurement and disposal unit district official, who has gone ahead to enumerate the different opportunities that are available to the women organizations in those districts where the trainings have been undertaken. Number three, the authority has looked at the amendment to the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act, which has been amended to include section 61A that provides for social inclusion. And this came into force on the 1st of July, 2021. And it will pave the way for providing for reservations of procurements for women-owned businesses, similar in nature to what Mr. Wanjuki was talking about, that is available or is being practiced in Kenya. We hope that we will get somewhere to that level. For purposes of protecting and ensuring advancement of different categories that have previously been categorized as disadvantaged and unfairly treated in terms of competition within the public procurement space, the preference and reservation schemes that have now been provided for under the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act of 2003, as amended, will also give women-owned businesses further advantages to participate in public procurement. Our definition, of course, looking at women-owned businesses is not very different from the previous defined definitions, where we look at a women-owned business as one which is owned by women or employs at least 50% of women. So it's both in the ownership and the employment. Like I said, we have undertaken media engagements to create awareness and to share progress in this drive to encourage participation of women in public procurement in all those regions where capacity building activities, trainings to the women enterprises have been going on. We have had radio talk shows. We've held press conferences, including interactions in the local languages where these women entrepreneurs are, and with staff from those local local governments, highlighting the opportunities in public procurement and encouraging the women to participate in public procurement. Again, in collaboration with the Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Association, we have recognized women who have participated in public procurement, and awards have been given to those women during different award ceremonies that have been taking place since the initiative was started in 2018. This is not to say that there are no challenges. Women entrepreneurs are still faced with hardships, but we have tried as much as possible to build their capacity and to enable them to lay foundation for them to be able to participate in public procurement by formalizing their businesses. But there are still challenges, as was identified in earlier presentation by Edwin, I believe, with terms of, for example, some of the women who have been able to participate in different procurement processes have had challenges with payments, delayed payments, being that they're small businesses. Of course, these delayed payments do affect the future of their businesses. Other challenges include, of course, accessibility to internet with the electronic government procurement. But this is a challenge that is not specific to only women-owned businesses, but all small and medium enterprises that are looking to participate in public procurement. So that is our experience at the authority with participation of women in public procurement. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for such a wonderful presentation. I like that we have the same theme in terms of the women enterprise support from our two legal frameworks. I think with that, I will move to the next to ask for any questions. If I'm not wrong, we are now done with the presenters. Any questions? Questions for, either you can post them on, and I could read through. Yes.
Sorry, I think we have another presentation from
Okay, okay. This is from?
Rwanda.
From Rwanda, okay. Okay, okay. DG.
Should I share it? Or
yes,
he can also
sure.
handle it?
Okay.
I'm sharing it. Can you see it?
Hello? Hello?
Can you see it, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can others hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. I see I cannot put on my camera. There must be some technical problems, but fortunately my voice can be heard. Can you share my presentation, please?
Yes, please.
Meanwhile, I'm Celestine Swamana. I'm the acting division manager for research, capacity development and monitoring at the Rwanda Public Procurement Authority. and I'm going to share a little bit about our experience in these women-led businesses in public procurement. We try to see to go a little bit on the public procurement system of Rwanda, and we are not going to delay on this. And we have some fundamental principles governing public procurement in Rwanda, and we have the operating model of this public procurement system in Rwanda. But mainly, we are going to focus on the public procurement and gender equality when we are talking about these women-led businesses. And can my presentation be shared, please?
Yes, I'm on. Okay, here you are.
Okay. Yeah. As I was mentioning, actually, in the framework of Rwanda, we don't really have the specific provisions talking about the women-led enterprises or businesses. Because in the context of Rwanda, we consider the equality between men and women. And when it comes to businesses, it is we keep the same spirit. You can go to the next slide, please. Next, I think these have been covered. Next slide. Next. Next. Next, please. Or you can start. Go back, please. Maybe you can start by these fundamental principles that are governing public procurement in Rwanda. We have transparency, you have competition, you have economy, and you have effectiveness and efficiency, you have fairness, and you have accountability. I mainly focus on these transparency, competition, and the fairness, because as per our constitution, we are saying that we cannot have any discrimination between men and men, be it in the businesses, be it on any other job. And as per this article, we think that the enterprises governed or led by women can compete with enterprises led by men. And even if the Rwandan constitution is talking about the 30% of as a quota for women in the organs that are making decisions. But when it comes to employment and businesses, we consider both the women and men at the same level. And go to the next slide. When we are talking about the procurement and gender equality, actually, we are aware that even global, not only in Rwanda but globally, women are not actually more active as men when we are talking about these businesses. However, we try to see how we can promote the women. And as Edwin has mentioned, in 2019, there has been a study led by the New Faces and New Voices in partnership with the UN Women, which revealed that actually women are not participating at the same level as men in the public procurement. And some recommendations has been elaborated. However, during the sessions, the validation sessions, this issue has been discussed, and even women themselves, they have said no, they don't need really to be treated separately than their brothers. Rather, they have to be sensitized and to be involved in public procurement. Next slide. Actually, as I was mentioning, our legal framework does not give any preference to women or to any other group. However, when we are analyzing how the situation is, we have found that the women and the other marginalized groups are not participating in public procurement, and it needs to be taken care of. And we are revising now the legal framework, and we have added a new fundamental principles, which is the inclusiveness, where we think that we are going to consider some groups, and we are also developing the public procurement policy, which is going to cater for these special groups that can be promoted, or even some preferences in the public procurement. As per the law that we have today, we have the exclusive preference and the local preferences. But these preferences are not focusing on any group of these gender issues. It is rather focusing on companies. And when we are talking about companies, for the exclusive preference, actually we are determining some tenders that are to be awarded to local companies. And when we are talking about the local companies, these are companies which are registered with the Rwanda Development Board, the public organ in charge of registering companies. And when it comes to local preference, it is where we can allow foreign companies to come to participate in public tenders, but we give some preferences to local companies. We don't have any scheme that is giving a preference to women or to youth like it is in Kenya, as both Patrick has mentioned. We rather focus on companies, because we think that our institution, when they are advertising the tender, they have what they need, and what they are going to do during the evaluation is to see who is the bidder or the supplier who is qualifying to the requirements set in the tender document. And yes, women are now complaining that they can be given, some of them, not all of them, that can be given some quota in public procurement, but it is still under analysis. Next slide. How to boost these women-led companies in the public procurement? Actually, we are saying after this study conducted by the New Face and New Voices and the recommendation they have raised, we are trying to see how we can consider the concern they have raised. And there is among other reasons, the reason we are revising our legal framework now, where we think we can analyze and see if we can give a given percentage or a given quota to these special groups, as I have mentioned before. However, when you talk to the private sector, for them, they don't need these preferences. Rather, they are actually talking about the preference can be given to Rwandans at a large scale, not specifying it is for women or it is for men. And the draft act has been submitted to the parliament for further analysis, but we have proposed that we can see in the public procurement policy if we can cater for these preferences that can be given to women, because not only they are not more confident than men, but also they are not confident to go to financial institution to find some financing, because when we ask them why they are not going to these big tenders, they're saying that they don't have the financial capacity, and but we have the government policy, which is to promote the people with low income to be involved in the business, so that the economy of the country can be boosted. Next slide, please. No, go back a bit. Back again. Actually, as per the study I have mentioned, we have seen that not only we have to encourage women to participate in public tenders, but also we have to think about the giving some flexibility when it comes to the joint ventures where women or enterprises led by women can be associate themselves to big companies or big business conducted by men, so that they can be encouraged, they can be confident in participating in public tenders. But we have also today we are using the e-procurement where which is making the proceedings more transparent. And when we are training these ladies, like the last financial year, we have tried to train about 1,500 women on the legal on the procurement procedures, so that they can see that there are no difficulties, there are no barriers for them to participate in public tenders. And we have also to think about other intervention that can be given to them. And now that we are partnering with the chamber and the private sector, the chamber for women, the private sector, so that we continue to sensitize them. We conduct awareness training so that they feel they are also allowed at the same level as men to participate in public tenders. Next slide. Yeah, even if we go back to the successful factors, please. Even if we don't have any preference reserved to women in our legal framework, however, we have the political will of empowering women in every field, not only in the business, but even at the job market. And when we base on this political will to empower women, we think that we, based on this, to convince women that they can participate in public tenders as men are doing. We also have the good governance. Not only these ladies are considered as men, but also we make sure that the people who are making decisions are going to consider people at the same level. We have these reforms in the public sectors, and that is the reason why we are revising our legal framework, so that we think in the future we might have some schemes that are favoring women-led enterprises. We have the technical and financial support from financial institutions and development partners. When you analyze the facilities which are being given to women on the financial side, you see that they are being given some advantages compared to men. And some development partners are also financing some projects that are led by women. And the availability of skills in procurement and ICT, it is what we are doing. We are teaching them now the use of e-procurement to make them be familiar with the system so that they can compete in public tenders. And we also have these institutions which are providing some trainings in public procurement. We are encouraging them to work with Association of Women and the Chamber of Women in the private sector. Next. In conclusion, we can say that actually we have tried to build an efficient procurement system which is transparent, and we need to build this foundation to address some issues, including boosting women-led enterprise through public procurement. We are trying to do our best so that the women are going to feel that they are also welcome in public procurement. And some action are being to be considered so that these women are going to feel that they can participate in public tenders, so that even if the government have to make any decision on giving a preference or boosting their enterprises in the public procurement, but they have also to be confident themselves. If we are revising the legal framework to encourage them to participate in public tenders, themselves they have also to feel to think that they are allowed to participate in public tenders, and they cannot be disassociated with other people who are being involved in public procurement. We have some affirmative actions that's actually like ensuring tender quota to women. That's being thought about in the public procurement policy. We have also this inclusion in the public procurement, and we have these advantages that are being given by financial institutions and development partners. And we have also to encourage women and women-owned businesses to participate in public tenders, so that at the end they find themselves at the same level as men are. I think in the brief, these are the experience from Rwanda, and we are trying to continue to conduct some awareness campaign and trainings to women, so that they are coming to participate in public tenders. Thank you very much. I submit, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation from Rwanda. I think it very clearly puts the case for how your jurisdiction is managing the process of building up the women enterprises. Building up women enterprises. I think with that, this now takes us to the last part of this presentation, and this will go to questions and answers. Maybe I'll go through, check in the chat, I can see there's one question. How do you manage preference margin in case where a given local company, which is also owned by women and entrepreneur, satisfies condition to benefit from the benefit? Okay. I could give the Kenyan experience context in regard to this question. There are two types of preference, if you recall, preference, if you recall my presentation. One is what we call preference, and there is reservation. In the case of reservations, it's where you reserve business to certain categories, and women are taken to be the group that say, for example, is reserved for that business. That is on reservation. However, when it comes to preference, it is an aspect whereby you apply a margin to a specific tender. For example, in Kenya, if you are a local company competing with a foreign company, and the local company has a shareholding of, say, about 51%, it would be entitled to a 20% price margin compared to a foreign company. I hope I'm clarifying how it comes. However, if the business is for women, and there is margin of preference, and there is also reservation. It will first qualify for reservations before you go then to margin of preference, because we also have margin of preference for businesses which are established in certain regions. I hope I'm clear on that. That is the Kenyan experience in context. The person who asked that question. Any other question? Participants, I would love to hear questions coming through to the plenary so that we get to share your experiences for those who may not have also made any presentation, but also we also get to be challenged on our practices for those who have made the presentations.
Sorry, it's me raising the question. Can I say something on it? I need more clarification.
Sure.
On the question. First, I would like to appreciate your presentation. It was very wonderful. But one thing I want to be sure, let's say that in case of international procurement process or tender, a given company satisfies to be a local company. I mean, the share of local owners is more than half, like 51% of the total. And at the same time, that company is a woman-led enterprise. So if this company is going to benefit from the margin of preference, both as a woman-led enterprise and also as a local company in case of international tender, then which one are you going to apply? The preference for a woman-led enterprise or the preference as a local company? That is my question, if you got my question. So.
In that case, first is when you were issuing your tender document, was this tender also eligible to international firms? You have to start from there. If it was indeed eligible to international firms, then you will consider the aspect of margin of preference. If it was not eligible for international firms, then you will consider the reservations. However, assume that both were to be considered, you use the one which is the most advantageous.
Oh.
Yeah, yes.
So one of the two, both cannot apply.
Yes.
Yes, that is what I want. Thank you for your clarification.
Good, thank you, Ven. Any other question? Okay.
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
I'll raise my hand. Edwin.
Okay.
Sorry, Edwin here. I just needed to know from the countries, maybe each of them, how they collect data to identify the women-owned businesses getting tenders. Do they have a mechanism with which they're able to collect that data and therefore able to know whether any intervention is actually working that is targeted for women? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Edwin. Maybe I'll start with especially my colleagues in the region, that is Uganda and Rwanda, to give the perspective of that question before I sum it up with the Kenyan context. Uganda.
Yeah, if I may.
Or Rwanda, yes.
This is Rwanda.
Oh, okay, great, Celestine.
Actually, it is not so easy to know if really the business is for a man or a woman. What we see, actually, we identify it from the registration certificate. We are going to see who is the owner of the company, and unfortunately, it can be in the name of the wife. What is the company for the husband? So it is not so sure that even if it is registered under the name of the wife, it belongs to her. However, it is the only mechanism we have. We have to consider the certificate of registration that is issued by RDB, the Rwanda Development Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Celestine. Yeah, I think it sets out my colleague, that is Sophia. I think you made the presentation on behalf of Uganda?
Yes, I did.
Thanks, Council. Any contribution in that regard? The question is, is there a way you are able to determine women enterprises and you collect data to be able to make any decision in regard to how women enterprises can be empowered? That's largely the question.
Thank you, Mr. Wanjuki. In terms of identifying the women-led organizations or the women-owned businesses, we look at the ownership and then the employment. Is it more than 50% women employed, or is it 50% or more owned by women? So it's both on the employment and the ownership. Of course, this would come out from the documents, the ownership documents at the time of bid submission. And then in terms of identifying which businesses to work with, we look at the register of providers as the authority, the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority of Uganda. We have a register of providers for all providers of goods, works, and services to the different procuring and disposing entities. And this is now on the electronic government procurement system. And so there is a laundry list of all the suppliers who are registered to participate in public procurement. And so in their registration on the register of providers, they're required to provide ownership documents, and this ownership can be got from those documents.
Okay, thank you very much.
Let me just
Sophia.
clarify that the question was on, and that's not just Uganda, but the rest, because I'm a bit familiar with that. Whether countries have any mechanism of tabulating or aggregating data related to the business, the contracts that go to women-owned businesses. Thankfully, everybody seemed to have talked about it in their presentation about how they define or categorize a woman-led or owned business. But at the end of the day, are we able to say maybe contracts worth this amount went to women-owned businesses or women-led businesses? That's what I wanted us to learn from each other, the different countries, if there's any that has.
Yes, thank you. Eddie, now I can share. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Wanjuki.
Okay, I can share the Kenyan context in that regard. Yes, in Kenya, we are able to know the percentage of business that opportunities that have been given to women for all public entities at the end of each quarter of every 3 months, because it's a mandatory requirement that all public procurement entities in Kenya report to PPRA on how much business they give to women, youth, persons with disability, and general suppliers or contractors. The only challenge we have is to aggregate that information, but with now our new public procurement information portal, there's a requirement that this data is provided through the portal, and you can aggregate that information even on a daily basis. Before, we were receiving the data in form of emails, PDF, but from 1st of July, we are now getting online data aggregating from each procuring entity how much business has been given to this. So we are moving on already on that direction, and we can give that information. Is clear that, Edwin?
Yes, that's very clear. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. I also wanted to just make a comment that what we are doing in Uganda also is to have identification of beneficial ownership information. And this is used to identify the different ownership, the ownership of the different companies. And the women-owned companies can be identified under this as well.
I think with that, we can say if there's no more questions coming, I will request the APPN chair now to do his closing remarks, and maybe because nothing much will come from my end, I will request he will close after, of course, the Secretary General has spoken. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you so much for the engagements that we've had for today. Personally, I've benefited a lot as I was listening through the different presentations being made. It has also made me think in terms of, as a Swatini, what can we look into taking and applying into our context in as far as developing women businesses and give them opportunities in the public procurement space. With those few words, I hope that as we all were listening, we are going to be having some of the other colleagues that were not presenting today, sharing also in the next not so distant future in terms of what have they achieved from their different environments, from actually taking a leave from the presentation that have been made today. I believe that as we continue with the engagements, we are going to be benefiting each other, we're going to be learning from each other, and we're going to try and make sure that we improve our different circumstances. May I take this opportunity to thank all of you for actually putting aside time from your busy schedule and sitting with us throughout this whole presentation. It has been a worthwhile investment in your time, and we hope that it is going to really spare you to try and do more in terms of our calling, which is public procurement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think you have put it very aptly on those issues. And maybe just to ask now for the SG to comment on any before we close. It's now.
Yeah. Do you want the technical secretary to give us words now, or you're asking for something else?
Now, yes.
Okay. Well, he's not around, but I can just talk on his behalf a little bit. I would like just to thank all of you, especially the 10 member countries of this sub-regional network. They confirmed, and yes, they are around. And thank you all you presenters for your participation in this, the success of this section. And we apologize for the interruptions that occurred because of the connection right here. But well, we thank you all for your commitment, and we would like to seize the opportunity again to thank our partners who are around. We will give you further information as far as other programs are concerned very soon.
With that, can I then we say we have the meeting closed, but any announcement specific about the next events?
Yes, as I said, we will communicate that very soon by email, so that you, or even on WhatsApp in our larger WhatsApp group, so that you are ready to participate. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay. 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 Thank you very much. Okay. Maybe having been now today's coordinator and the chair for this panel, I wish to thank everyone who participated in this exercise of sharing the knowledge about areas to do with the economic empowerment of women enterprises. I trust all of us have got valuable information, which will definitely put in our various jurisdictions, and as to how we go towards this objective. And the lessons learned, we can still share them even for those who may wish to get additional information, especially from the presenters. No doubt you can reach out to enhance the information or any clarification that you may need to get directly. I know Somalia, you have a question. I would be available to assist in that regard. But as for now, to thank each one of you, and I hope to meet each one of you in the next session. Abdul, thank you for making this possible for all of us. To all our various stakeholders, we truly appreciate for the effort towards this area. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, and you're
Yes.
welcome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
can-
Bye.